Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss the history and the haunts.
Today's story takes us near Pittsburgh. I'm Sarah.
And I'm David.
Let's get into it. This season, we're being sponsored by our friends at Haunted US. They travel the country bringing you real stories of American hauntings every Thursday at hauntedus.com. So today's story takes us to Mudlick Hollow. Do you remember going here? We hiked along it one time.
No, you'll have to give me more.
What? That generic description didn't jog your memory?
We hiked this place once in our life. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I know exactly.
That's exactly the place. So from what I remember, it was actually really disappointing because there's a trail called Mudlick Hollow Trail that goes along Mudlick Hollow Road, but there's like homes and stuff there. It's weird.
Was this the trail that we took out of a book?
I think so.
And the book was a little, not super old, but I think like 10 years old?
Yes, and the trail was incomplete and we couldn't go very far.
I don't think the trail was incomplete. I just don't think the trail exists anymore.
Yes. That's what I mean. You could hike, quote, the road, and then we couldn't find the actual trail. That I think we're thinking of the same thing.
We had to climb a bunch of stairs?
Don't know about that.
Okay.
Regardless. So we've hiked this area. So I'll start with the history, and it's interesting because the history of this is a really short history. The history is strange because it's a road, so kind of like Blue Mist Road, where there wasn't a ton of history other than this road exists. But it's located in Brighton Township, Pennsylvania, and there were actually properties for sale on the road currently. Not homes, but lots. I think a lot of it currently doesn't have any buildings on it. And according to some historical accounts, it used to be, well, not some historical accounts, it did used to be Native American lands. Some claim that there are burial grounds underneath the road, which could lend itself to some of the paranormal activity, and it has had homes on and off of it over time. And I guess that's it for the history, because it's just a road.
I don't know. I'm just thinking had homes on the road, on and off it over time. It's like, I don't know. It just made me think of a home being on top of the road, being taken off the road, on top of the road. Because if the road is shifting and kicking the buildings off.
Oh, yeah, no. I just mean torn down, rebuilt.
Mine's more fun.
Yeah, yours is. The road itself is the spirit that's physically kicking the houses. That sounds like something out of a cartoon.
I may have been imagining a Bugs Bunny road. Yes.
That's funny.
Or Roadrunner Road. That is the more apt.
Yeah. So the paranormal story is the bulk, right? So the main haunting here is a married couple. And there are a few different versions of this story, as with the case of many of these hauntings that we discuss. The first one is that on their wedding day in the 1800s, they were riding in a carriage along the road. An animal ran out in front of the carriage, scaring the horses and causing the carriage to overturn and crash. The bride allegedly snapped her neck in the accident and was dead immediately, but the groom was crushed under a horse and had to slowly die next to his bride.
Wait, they were in a carriage?
In the 1800s.
I guess he was driving the carriage? How did he end up underneath the horse?
I think it's just he wasn't driving it. I don't think. I think it's just the way that things fell. And this gives me really Romeo and Juliet vibes, watching your loved one die. Sad.
I don't think she was watching.
She wasn't watching. He was. He had to sit next to her corpse.
Yeah, I don't think, it's not even Romeo and Juliet. He's not watching her die. She's already gone.
But that is Romeo and Juliet, right? Because Juliet wakes up and Romeo's dead.
Fair. Yeah. That's just that story, I'm still just really struggling with it in terms of like
The physics.
the physics of it. How did he's wasn't driving but ends up underneath a horse and dies?
Maybe he was driving, for all we know. It didn't say. I just assumed he wasn't, because it was their wedding day. I would assume someone else was driving them, but I don't
Fair.
know. Due to this, legend says that when you are driving there at night, you can hear the sound of horse hooves walking along the road, and suddenly fog will appear and you will hear screaming. And then when the fog lifts, all of the sounds stop. Which is very Blue Mist Road vibes. Of like, blue mist rolls in and then all the paranormal stuff. And when it's gone, nothing's happening.
Well, I mean, like, minus all like the demonic potential things from Blue Mist as well.
I mean, we're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
But I think that would make sense. You know, if the crash happened there, it would make sense that it's either playing on loop or there's the remnants of it there spiritually. So the story does have variation, or some people say that both of these stories are true. So another version says that a man named Patrick Mulvinen built a house here, and it was known as the White House, which is interesting, and he built it for his new bride, again, a newly married couple. Unfortunately, she fell off the second floor balcony and snapped her neck, dying instantly. So it's a similar death for the bride. They're both newly married couples. They both have the wife snapping her neck and dying instantly. It's just, is it in a carriage or is it in the house?
Mm-hmm.
It's said that Patrick roams the road in his death, still looking for his wife and causing general unrest in the area.
Okay.
So people have reported seeing him, well, a man as an apparition, and they just assume it's this Patrick guy.
Gotcha. Was the White House white?
Yes.
Darn. I was kind of hoping it was not white.
I know. I just think it's an interesting name for the house. It didn't give the time of that, but how long has the White House been called the White House, you know? Like in D.C.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
More than a year.
More than a year.
Very solid answer. And then the other thing about it is, like, my true crime self comes out a little bit. It's like, ooh, what if he actually just killed her and then pushed her over? But that doesn't really then support the spooky ghost story of him walking down the street trying to find his wife.
Well, it could be guilt, or it could be like stuck in purgatory because he murdered her. But apparently they were very in love and he was very distraught.
I believe it.
But who could know? Especially depending on what time it is. If people married for love or not.
Yeah, I mean, if she wanted to get out of the marriage, divorce wasn't really a thing. So I guess there's that option.
Just dive up. I feel like if it was suicide, jumping off a second floor balcony was not the way to do it. Like, the odds, you have to land in a way that's going to really injure you. That's not that far up.
Yeah, I mean, you have a very good point. I mean, it's like from our balcony.
That's even.
It's not a very far drop.
Even if he pushed her, it's not a sure thing. You know, maybe if she was like on the roof or something. But then how are you going to explain that away?
Well, how big was this house?
I don't know. Second floor. It at least had 2 floors.
That's, yeah.
It's typically what second floor means. Aren't you so happy I'm here to explain it?
Or is it the 3rd floor? Because, you know, in Europe it's 0.
Could be. Don't think it is.
Yeah.
I did read that the house was built on Native American burial grounds, so her death may have been paranormal in itself. Some suggest that these spirits of the Native Americans there were angry that the house had been built on their burial grounds, and so they wanted the people that lived there dead.
Okay. I guess that answers my question. I was going to say, so how do the Native Americans work into this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that could be true, but I think it's more likely that she fell or someone pushed her.
Yeah, tragic accident, I'd be more willing to bet.
Yeah, because I'm sure things weren't built to safety codes like they are today.
Right, because surely, like, if the house was haunted, the husband would have said something that there would be maybe some historical evidence of that.
Oh, I see what you mean. He'd be like, yeah, it's strange that she died because there's been all these strange happenings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Unless he was just so, I don't know, upset, distraught with her death that he didn't say anything.
Hi listeners! We're so excited to tell you about our partnership with Haunted US. Haunted US is an online publication that brings you credible articles on the history and specific paranormal claims of haunted locations across the country. We've even used them to research some of our episodes. Visit hauntedus.com for new haunted places every Thursday.
So, some people suggest that these things are the same. Some people have suggested that these things are separate and then have created the separate hauntings. I think it makes sense. So we know there at least has to be something to contribute to the horse hooves. So that the first would make sense of that. And then we have the full-bodied apparition of a man walking around. And so I think it makes sense that they would be separate. What do you think?
They could certainly be separate. You could have multiple hauntings, obviously, in one location. I mean, if Blue Mist Road gets to have multiple hauntings, why can't this place?
Yeah, exactly. People often go at night trying to capture various things on camera, and one account said that they regularly caught spirit orbs at the portion of the road where the crash allegedly happened, but nowhere else on the road. So they're catching these orbs specifically in the same area.
So then, putting on my cap, my skeptic cap of, so what's going on right there in that portion of the road? Mm-hmm. Is it where a nice cross breeze could happen that might bring dust particles or something across? Mm-hmm. Let's look at that a little bit before.
That's what I was thinking. Is there water nearby that might be doing reflections? Is there something that's warping light of a headlight because it's at night? I think are there spider webs with particles in them that you're catching and look like orbs? I think
Is it a firefly?
That's a great point too. I think it could be paranormal, but without seeing the photos and, without being able to debunk it ourselves, it's really hard for me to give it the full stamp of approval as something paranormal.
Yeah, I mean, spirit orbs are pretty hard to work with in terms of how do you prove there was no particles, no particulates, nothing that was actually causing the orbs.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Some people report that there's fog that rolls in. Again, we talked about that with the first one, of the fog rolls in, you hear the screaming, and then the fog rolls out. But some people say that the fog is actually black and that it settles over the whole length of the road, so it's very hard to see, even with headlights. One first-hand account reported that a person drove along the road during this black mist fog time period and sort of went into a trance. The person that was writing this first-hand account said that she was repeatedly trying to get her friend's attention, saying their name, etc., and the person was not responsive until they finally turned off the road, like they were driving on autopilot.
Spooky.
I know, but it also makes me wonder if someone was doing that on purpose. I think it can be so hard. I don't want to be a big Debbie Downer on this one, because I do think there's something to be said for the horse hooves and the full-bodied apparition. But I think unless it happens to me or someone I trust, things like going into a trance could just be someone pretending.
Yeah, or just completely zoning out because it's late at night, you're driving.
Yeah, but that's harder for me to believe that they were just zoning out, because even if you were zoning out, if I was like, David, you'd snap too. At least somewhat. You wouldn't be unresponsive.
Yeah, something like that. Selective hearing.
So, other people have claimed that there's other full-bodied apparitions that walk the street, less distinct as the one man. And I think a lot of people probably lived and died on the road. Definitely, if there's the Native American burial ground there, it could be the spirits of some of the natives walking around. And with any road, there's bound to be some level of accidents. So there might be other accidents that happened there that we don't even know about.
Sure. And as far as the full body apparitions go, did we get a description of what those look like?
Nope.
Oh.
I know. I wish we did.
Yeah, that would have been nice to be looks like a man in old-timey clothes. So, which one was that potentially?
Right. or looks like a Native American, or looks like a bride, or, variety of things. One other first-hand account that I read said that the person's dad actually grew up in Mudlick Hollow on the road, and he claimed that there was many electrical hauntings, such as lights in his house turning themselves on and off, and radios doing the same thing.
Spooky.
I think it's interesting because this is, near the woods. You could say, oh, is there substantial electricity? Is it just a natural occurrence? But I think if this was happening over the whole length of his life, someone would have fixed it. Or, it's not associated with the storm. It's not, a power surge. It's happening over time, non-specifically rather.
Yeah, I need to look up to see if it's like, if there's bad electrical, could it create like on their own circuits, kind of like a power fluctuation that would like turn the radio off, turn it back on.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear if the radio, no matter where it was in the house, was being turned on. So like to rule out just like one bad circuit that's causing it to fluctuate, to turn off and on.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if they did even move the radio. I just picture the radio like always in the living room.
Ooh, but what would make this argument a little less valid would be if it was not a plug-in radio.
I think it was.
Oh, okay.
And it does remind me of the interactions at the National Aviary, where the spirit there used the radio to try to communicate with one specific staff member. So we've seen stuff like this before.
Yeah, I mean, my skeptic hat only comes on because I'm like, ooh, if that's bad wiring or something, that might be the cause. Especially if it's been throughout your whole life. But then again, it could just as easily be paranormal.
Yeah, more information needed on that one. But it is always our responsibility to be skeptical. We don't want to put falsities out. So would you go to this place of paranormal phenomena?
Yes.
To what degree? Like, would you go during the day? Would you go at night? Would you go for an investigation?
I'd go at night, but only if Erica wants to be in the car with us too.
I would love to go back at night and see what happens, see if any mist rolls in, and I think you'd probably have to go back for a few nights. If the first night you see mist, then you'd have to go back at another time just to make sure it wasn't a weather pattern or something.
Time of year.
Yeah, exactly. And then also I would want multiple cameras running to capture anything that we might see. Like, I'm picturing like 4 GoPros facing all angles of the car to see what we capture.
Yeah.
And I think we probably could do it, but if people live on the street, they might not take kindly to us being there at like midnight.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's just a public access road, I don't think that that's going to be anything out of the ordinary. And they might be used to it because, from all the people coming through.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we'll be respectful. But we'll also, you and I will cock up a scheme where I'll just go and start staring off in the distance and keep driving. And then you'll start responding, like saying my name, and I won't respond. But we won't tell Erica about it.
No. And this is why Erica would drive, or I would drive. That way David can't mess with us.
It'd be so much fun, though.
No, it would not be so much fun. It would not be so much fun.
Erica does not look pleased with this idea.
This is why I have trust issues in the world. But yeah, I would love to go back. I think it's really interesting. Like I said, the full-bodied apparition of allegedly Patrick and the horse hooves, I think, are valid. The spirit orbs, the mist, the electric, I could take or leave those.
Agreed.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on Mudlick Hollow?
No, not necessarily.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of Paranormal in Pennsylvania, where we discuss history and hauntings. Today we talked about Mudlick Hollow, but tune in next Thursday to see what history and hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky, my friends.